Alright, let's get back to where we abruptly left off because I was sleepy, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so anyway, if we're out in the field and it's necessary, we have a false profile we can enable so it doesn't attract attention, but it's unnecessary on a day-to-day basis. I see. Fake profiles. You think of everything, don't you? It's our job to think of everything, and we've been at it a long time. I mean, I guess that's true. You guess. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I didn't get an orientation. I got an abduction and instant training classes on how to hit people. There's been a decided lack of basic history of the organization, command structure, briefing, and the like beyond the files you gave me. And since my system access is so limited, there's a lot I can't even look up beyond that right now. Well, I guess they want to make sure you're not going to blab our secrets to who? My messages to my parents are read by others before I can send them, and I'm not let outside the building without an escort. Maybe they're afraid you'll try to escape. He grinned. Can't tell me you haven't thought about it. I have thought about it. I thought about this morning. And you went to train instead? Aren't you dutiful? Merely determined to live. I guess that goes for all of us. Sometimes I suspect I'm not the only one who needs a break from it all. Well, trying to train you is stressful, like training a pet rock. I am way smarter than a pet rock. And much more charming, thank you very much. He scoffed. Try being your teacher for a day. Try being your student for a day. He smirked at that and set his hand on my back as we walked. Come on, there's a cafe I wanted to show you. I reckon you'll like it. It was almost like a normal day again. Being out, going to the cafe, being around people. I was glad. I hadn't realized how much of a cloud had been hovering over me at the tower, not until I got off the grounds and felt like a normal person again for a while. It was nice even if my date for the day was Caleb, of all people. Well, he was almost like a normal person out here too, so it wasn't so bad. So, how's Brizzle so far? I almost said basil. It's beautiful, of course, but you already know that. It's alright, I guess. Oh my god, is there anything you enjoy? A few things. Dancing. Sometimes. Anything else? Because it feels like you spend a lot of time complaining. There's a lot to complain about these days, you know, I feel them. But complaining about it doesn't help. Makes me feel better. Does it though? Because you seem to be in a bad mood a lot, in spite of complaining. Just because that's your perception doesn't make it true. I'm surprised you're not in a bad mood more than you are, to be honest. That because you ascribe to belief, it doesn't help? Because it doesn't, it makes you feel worse. The optimism of yours helps then. It keeps you from being in a terrible mood all the time anyway. I lost the capacity for that stuff years ago. Should I resign myself to the fate of turning into an insufferable grouch at some point? From what I've seen of your personality, you're more likely to turn out loud and obnoxious like Van. Well, I think we can agree that as long as I don't turn out like Magnus, I'll be fine. He let out a dry laugh, nodding to the waiter who brought our coffee out. I can definitely agree to that one. So, can I ask you something? You've never hesitated before. No reason to start now. Why did you bring me out here today? How did you even get permission? I'm surprised I let you. Didn't ask them. I told them I was going to do it and didn't give them a chance to argue. Well, thank you. I appreciate getting out here, seeing the sky, getting some sun, being able to walk around the city a little. I really appreciate it. Cleared your head a bit then? What makes you think I needed to clear my head? He scoffed and took a sip of his coffee, looking out to the people passing by. You're not the sort of person who can hide something like that, that's all. I could see it weighing on you more and more each time. As I watched Caleb, I couldn't help but think in-game isn't the only thing different than I imagined. He was more thoughtful than I had expected him to be, a little sometimes. I mean, he was grumpy and gruff, but this wasn't the first time he was looking out for me in a small, unexpected way. I wrapped my hands around my cup and smiled. Thank you. He cleared his throat, still not looking at me. If I didn't know him better, I'd say my gratitude was embarrassing him. Well, I figured it would improve your training to get out here for a while, that's all. No one wants to be caged. No one wants to be a caged bird. Magnus is, and look how he behaves. I don't want that crap on my team. I laughed and took a sip of my coffee. You could just say you're welcome. After a moment, he took another sip of his coffee. You're welcome. He half muttered into his cup, but I heard it clearly. Amused, he did have a cute side in there. So, what were you working on with the rookies anyway? They were helping me out with some things, showing me some new techniques. I realized that mimicking and understanding their PSI is a little easier too than working with me. I thought about answering that honestly, but decided against it. I should just leave that one alone. From the look on his face, Caleb knew what was going through my head anyway. I decided to casually move on from that. I didn't mean it that way. I meant their PSI was easier to mimic. Their PSI is different from mine? That's what you're trying to say? It is. I don't know how to explain it. It's less complex, maybe less developed, so it's a little less easier to interpret its movements and structure, that's all. I guess that's fair. If it was that much easier for you, maybe I should schedule weekly work with them as part of your training regimen. I hadn't considered the implications of PSI complexity when planning things. You mean working with them while you're there as well, right? I am your teacher from the time being. Oh, this will win me some favor for sure, considering I'm certain they're both scared of you. He smirked. I expected to get some remark back from him, but he looked thoughtful for a moment, running a finger along his lower lip. So, you can analyze PSI to that degree, huh? I'll admit, I don't know much about how your abilities work. The last queen was. His voice unexpectedly faltered at her mention, just enough for me to notice. I think he realized it too. He cleared his throat and continued, eyes shifting away. The last queen was a natural at using her abilities. I doubt she could have explained it to anyone how she did it. I never heard her talk about things like the complexity of someone's PSI. I think the rest of us just figured you'd be as much natural with things. Stands to reason that you're not, though. She started using her PSI at a much earlier age. The last queen, huh? I didn't know much about her except that she had died about 10 years prior. I remembered when it happened since there was a lot of news coverage, but I didn't pay much attention to the story at the time. Everyone on the guard had grown up together in Endgame, so that must have included her. I was still an outsider. Losing me would be an annoyance right now, and I assumed that for at least some of them, it would make them sad. But losing the previous queen must have hurt a lot. I wonder what happened to her. She was a queen rank, yet even that wasn't enough to keep her alive. I didn't like to think about it that way, and what it meant for someone like me, who could still barely use her abilities. But maybe I should ask him anyways. I had a right to know after all. Caleb, I was wondering. A chorus of shouts from down the street interrupted me mid-sentence, drawing attention to something happening about a block away. Caleb was on his feet in an instant, while my reaction was much slower. He had taken about 3 steps in the direction before remembering I was with him. An uncertain expression crossed his face as he seemed torn between going and staying. Shit. Come on. He grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet, starting towards the commotion at a jog. Maybe I should... I can't leave you alone. I can't ignore whatever the hell this is, so you're coming with me. Are you sure this is a good idea, Caleb? No, I'm not. Well, as long as you're certain. I staggered after him. Part of my mind was wondering when things would be normal again, but another part realized this was normal for me now. Should we, I don't know, call for backup or whatever? I already did that. As we neared the source of commotion, we passed people who were fleeing from someone else. There was someone shouting and screaming. Caleb pulled me into cover area, taking me by the shoulders. He sort of nudged me into the shadow behind a column, well out of sight. I don't know what's going on, but there's some man over there shouting. Several people are down. I'm not sure what's happening. I need you to stay where you can see me, but he can't see you. If it looks like the situation is getting worse, before backup arrives, get out of here. I grabbed his arm as he left, not sure what I wanted to say. Be careful, maybe? When no word came out, Caleb removed my hand and left me there. My heart was in my throat, and as I looked around the corner, eyes seeking the man Caleb mentioned. Sure enough, he was about 20 or 30 yards away, waving around a small, compact object as he shouted. His words were indistinct above the sounds of others calling for help, shouting, or fleeing. What the hell is happening? I expected Caleb to rush in and start hitting people. Maybe he just seemed to be the type, but that wasn't his strategy at all. Caleb approached him slowly, calling out in a soft voice and holding both hands where the man could see. He's gonna try to talk him down? I wouldn't have figured him for the talking sort. I kept one eye and ear on them, though I couldn't quite make out Caleb's words. The man was saying something about sacrifices and something about eyes. I wasn't sure. His garbled words were hard to hear from where I was standing. Pressing myself to the side of the pillar, I surveyed the rest of the scene. The windows of the buildings lining the opposite side of the road were shattered. Shards of glass glittered into the late afternoon sun. There were multiple people lying prone or curled on their sides in the street and on the footpath. Did that man do all this? Initially, I assumed he had a sonic weapon that could have caused all this damage before me, but the device in his hand didn't look like any weapon I'd seen. Does that mean these people are dead? Caleb was talking to him now from about 3 meters away from him. I couldn't hear their voices anymore, but the man didn't appear to have calmed down, nor did it seem like he was ready to hand over the weapon. Was I supposed to just stand there and watch? And where was the backup that Caleb requested? A flash of movement caught my eye. A woman curled over the few meters from where I was. It looked like she had fallen from fleeing. She was alive but wounded. I made a split-second decision. I knew I might come to regret, and moved from my pillar to the one closer to the woman, and then again to behind a nearby rubbish bin. It put me within 1.5 meters to the woman, but I was much closer to Caleb and the man too. Close enough to catch a bit of what they were saying, just little snatches of it here and there. Caleb was trying to talk him into handing over the weapon. I looked around from my spot, heart going into overdrive, when I realized how close they were now. Oh fuck, sorry guys. I pressed my back to the bin, breathing hard and squeezing my eyes shut. They're in my head. Don't you understand it? I can hear them. I can hear the eyes. I understand, and I hope you get them out again. I just need you to put the weapon down. No, you won't help me. You can't help me. I glanced at the woman nearby again. Closer now, I saw that what I thought was a large bruise on her neck was actually veins. Blackish purple veins pulsing their way up her neck and over her jaw. What the f— My words were a whisper. But her watery eyes, veined with blackish purple, rolled into her skull and met mine. Her lips were moving, but nothing came out except a raspy groan. She reached a hand towards me. The same black and purple veins were spreading down her arm as her fingers scraped through the broken glass. Help me. Stay where you are. Let's help her. Caleb had told me to stay put, but wasn't I also responsible for helping people now? Could I justify hiding while an injured person lay a few steps from me? I didn't think so. With the briefest hesitation, I glanced Caleb's way again, then I slipped out of my hiding spot. He and that man were far enough away, it would be alright. For the time being, the man was saying something about his eyes again. My attention was on the injured woman, so I didn't catch it. I crouched down and inched towards the woman, keeping watch on the others as I did. I would just pull her out of the open for now until help arrived. There was nothing nearby to use as a cover, so I was painfully exposed, but I had hoped he was too focused on Caleb to notice me. Now that I was close enough, I realized the veins were spreading over the woman's body like something was infecting her. She was clutching her abdomen with one hand. There was no blood, but she appeared to have an injury there. What is this? I was almost afraid to touch her, but there was no way I could leave her there. She let out a frantic sob, and I tried to help her up, everything else momentarily forgotten. Don't worry, help is on the way. Come on. Damn it, Adonis, pay attention. I spun around, staggering to my feet, to a sense of danger flooded my mind. No, why didn't I use my sphere to keep an eye on them? Everything was a blur as my head throbbed with a sudden panic of overwhelming sensation that something terrible was about to happen. Stupid. I'd completely let my guard down. The man aimed the thing in his hand at me. His words seemed to drag out as he said I was just another sacrifice, and Caleb was in front of me, one arm shoving me behind him at the last second. The weapon discharged, and I knew the shot hit from the way Caleb staggered into me, almost taking us both to the ground. No! Get out of here now. He gritted the words out, and I watched in horror as he lunged at the man, this time dodging another shot from what I realized was a relic. A relic, a small compact and threaded with a pale blue circuitry. Girl? Look. That pulsed faintly. I froze in place, unable to flee or do anything but watch as Caleb's shoulder hit the man square in the gut. They both fell hard. The relic went spinning through the air. It hit the ground and slid towards me along the street. The man was screaming, and Caleb, handicapped by an injury, was struggling to hold him down. The purple veins had already begun spreading to Caleb's neck and face. No, no, no. Adonis, I said get out of here. I won't. Where is that backup he called for? Caleb winced, and the man came close to throwing him off. My body moved then, on instinct, I guess. I couldn't leave Caleb to deal with this alone. Logically, I knew it had only been a few minutes since he had been called for backup. I left the woman where she was, darting towards the weapon that lay between me and Caleb, was trying to hold down the culprit. Even with it in hand, I wasn't sure I could threaten anyone, but help should be here soon. The man started shrieking and writhing against Caleb the moment I picked the weapon up. I stared down at it in shock and fascination. It really was one. A relic. My eyes were drawn to the strange cyan girl. What? My vision darkened until those circuits were all I saw, as if they were burned into my retinas. like I was falling into them. Blue light covered my vision and everything else faded. An ear-splitting howl roared through my head like the fiercest storm Archelaus could muster. There were words, unintelligible, painful, flowing through me. There was a sudden shift, like something clicking in my hand, sending a shockwave of pain through me. I screamed and clapped both hands to my head, dropping the relic. Caleb's voice bled into me, shouting my name, and that man's voice was there, others too. My knees hit the ground, and that jolt was what brought me back. Damn it, Adonis, I told you to get out of here. Sorry, I was worried. My head felt like it would split into two. I was so dizzy. You were shot. I'm fine. That man, don't worry about him. What the hell was that? What happened? I don't know. Caleb was holding me close, with his head pressed to my shoulder. I was straining to get a look at the man who had gone silent. I couldn't budge from where I was. Caleb started shouting to other people, snapping at them, demanding to know what took so long. His voice was jarring and painful. My eyes shut and I lay still, listening to his voice rumble through his chest. Nori, don't sleep. Not sleeping is just too loud. I mumbled the words against his shirt, lacking the energy to glare at him. Just stay with me, Nori. His voice had a strange, frantic tremble to it. I hadn't heard him sound like that. What's wrong with you? You're the one that was hurt. That's right, Caleb got shot. That's the thing. I pushed him away, trying to shake off the painful fog on my mind. His hazy face was just clear enough to make out the panicked expression. You were shot. He seemed almost relieved to see me moving around so much. He pulled me close again. Worry about yourself. I'm fine. Stop moving around so much until a medic gets here. I'm fine too. You don't look fine. Caleb. About damn time. How the hell did a rookie patrol team get here before you did? I was otherwise occupied and had to be recalled from out of the field. Caleb got to his feet, pulling me up along with him. He passed me to Ari, who took me by the shoulders and kept me upright. Get her to the tower. She touched that relic right before it exploded. Exploded? It had some kind of effect on her. Have you checked it out? Have you check her out personally? Wait, he shot you with that thing. Ari, wait. I'm fine. Whatever it was doing, it stopped the moment you shut it down or whatever you did. I didn't do anything. Get her to the med ward, Ari, now. Wait. And if I wanted to argue further, it was too late because Caleb was gone and we were standing in the medical ward near the nurse's station. We need Dr. Sasakai immediately. After that, everything became a blur of exams and questions and the angry lecture from Sasakai when he finally got the story of what happened to me. I didn't even have time to worry over it all. I learned later that the whole thing had just been over a few minutes, even though it felt like the time had dragged out. I could hardly believe it. I spent a good portion of the afternoon and evening in the medical ward after that, even though Dr. Sasakai had eventually admitted that there was nothing wrong with me. That was after several full body scans, a more specific brain scan, blood work, and a physical exam. They couldn't quite work out what happened when I touched the relic or why I'd been in pain. There was residual radiation in my body, but as far as we knew, airy radiation wasn't harmful, at least not at such a low level. I was lucky. I learned later on that the man that had been wielding the relic passed away. They brought him to the Cor Solaris, but he was pronounced dead on arrival. It appeared to have happened at the same time the relic deactivated by Caleb's account. And the relic deactivated when I touched it and had that strange experience. I still couldn't explain what that was. I hadn't been trying to deactivate it, and what was left of it was down in the research facility now. The best news of the day was when I learned that when the relic deactivated, the effects on those the man shot had faded away. The woman in the street and the others he shot and Caleb were all fine. Like me, their bodies contained residual airy radiation, but no other ill effects. Caleb spent most of his afternoon in the room next to me, also getting every test under the sun. He punctuated every single one with an angry message to me about the importance of following orders and staying alert in emergency situations, which, okay, I couldn't fault him for that. I had disobeyed and had not been paying attention, and he got shot at because of me. I was only lucky that it all turned out okay this time. I tried very hard not to dwell on the alternative outcomes. He was trying to do the same, no doubt. Remembering how his voice sounded when he was holding on to me before Ari arrived. Oh, there's a driver update. Ari arrived, I scared him. I guess now I owe him an apology, but more than anything, I was glad everyone was okay. Because that was the only good thing that came out of today. Otherwise, all we had were too many unanswered questions and one unfortunate casualty. How did that man get his hands on a relic? Where did he come from? How did he get into the city? There weren't answers to any of these questions, and with the man dead, Caleb had called that convenient. I couldn't quite view lives in terms of convenience, but I had to admit that it was strange that he just died just because I touched the relic. almost as if he was connected to it or something. And for him to get into appraisal with it, for this relic situation to hit so close to home in our own backyard even. Caleb had said that Brazel was a target because of Endgame, but is that why the man had come here? They had a team investigating it, but given what Magnus had said previously, I didn't think this was the last encounter I was going to have with the situation, which meant I needed to be better prepared for the next time. Much better prepared. And with that, I will talk to you guys later.